Hey guys, and welcome to part 3 of the Create a Serverless App video series. In this video, we're going to be integrating our API Gateway REST API with our application front end so that we can add, remove, edit, and fetch products from our serverless backend through the UI. So if that sounds good, please stick around and let's do this. Alright guys, so before we start coding, there are a few housekeeping items that we still need to take care of in API Gateway. So let's go ahead and open a browser and head on over to our AWS Management Console. Alright, and once you're there, let's go ahead and navigate to API Gateway. And from the left-hand menu, go ahead and select Hexal Products API. Alright, so the first thing we want to do here is, now, if you remember when we first configured our REST methods, we selected the AWS IAM authorization option. All right. Now, in order to integrate our REST API with this option enable, we would have to go in and create a new IAM user with programmatic access to our REST API and pass in AWS credentials prior to sending requests to our REST API. So I was thinking about it, and for the purpose of this tutorial, I really don't want to lock down our API to that extent. So we're going to remove this option for now. And once we deploy our front end with our custom domain name, we'll disable cross-domain requests, CORS, and I feel like our API will be secure enough once we restrict access to requests coming from our domain. All right, so what I want you to do is go ahead and select get, and in that method request, drill into method request, and let's go ahead and change our authorization back to none. All right, and don't forget to save it. All right, now we'll want to do this for each method, so select delete next and go into method request, and let's make the same change. Save it. All right, do the same for patch. Don't forget to save. And finally, we'll do the same thing for post. Method request and change to none. Save. All right, guys, so the next thing we want to do is we actually want to enable CORS for now while we're still dealing with a UI that's going to be at localhost and a remote REST API. Now, if you recall, we did enable CORS when we set up our REST API. However, we also selected Lambda proxy integration on all of our methods except for get. And with this option enabled, basically, API Gateway will read the response headers coming back from Lambda. So we need to go into each Lambda and make sure that we're returning the access control allow origin header. But before we do that, we want to go back into our get method and actually enable Lambda proxy integration. So go ahead and click on get and click into your method request. Click on your integration request and go ahead and make sure that use Lambda proxy integration is selected. Okay. Click on OK. All right, so now we're on the same footing with all of our methods using the Lambda proxy integration. So from here, what we want to do is open up Lambda in a new tab. Okay, and we need to go through each function and make sure that we're returning the access control allow origin header. So let's start with Hexal put. Okay, and we need to scroll down to the very bottom of the function where we're returning our response, and we just need to add one header right after content type, okay? So there we go, it's access control allow origin, and we're specifying a star as the value just to allow any domain to access this REST API, okay? So once you're done, click save, and you can just go ahead and copy this, and we're going to paste it into each Lambda. All right, so go back to functions and let's do Hexal get items next. We're just going in sequential order here. So go ahead and add that after your application JSON. Save. All right, let's do Hexal delete next. All right, go ahead and add that header. Oops. And save. Back to functions, and we have one more, which is Hexal update item. Okay, and add our header, and go ahead and save. Okay, perfect. So now we're in a great position for our CORS to be working across all of our methods in our REST API. All right, so with those changes, the next thing we want to do is we actually want to deploy our API Gateway REST API. Now, once we deploy our REST API, AWS will actually give us an invoke URL or a temporary domain by which we can access our REST API. All right, so let's go ahead and select the high-level / here, and from the Actions dropdown, select Deploy API. All right, so you'll see a little Deploy API dialog pop up here. Now for deployment stage, go ahead and select New Stage, and for stage name, let's go ahead and say Prod. All right, we'll leave the description fields blank for now. Just go ahead and click on Deploy. All right, so before we do anything else, just go ahead and scroll down and click Save Changes. All right. Now at the top of our prod stage editor, you'll see an invoke URL. Now let's go ahead and copy and paste that to our clipboard because this is the URL endpoint that we'll use in our UI to access the REST API. Okay. All right. So once you've copied that URL, let's head on over to our text editor or our IDE. Okay. Now, we're going to be working with the UI code for the rest of this tutorial. So if you haven't already downloaded and installed the UI, the starter Hexal app, please go back to video 1. And in the beginning of that video, we walk through the steps of how to do that. So you should have that code downloaded at this point. And so go ahead and open up your editor and go ahead and open up the Hexal Serverless starter folder. All right. Now, the first thing we want to do while we have that URL copied to our clipboard is go ahead and paste it into our config file. So let's expand the source folder, and there should be a file called config.json. So let's go ahead and open that file. And as you can see here, there's an API and invoke URL property. So we want to go ahead and paste our URL into that property value. Okay, and let's go ahead and save the file. Now this will allow us to access this domain from other files without having to, code it every time. All right. All right, guys, so before we start on any coding, why don't we go ahead and navigate to your Hexal Starter App folder and go ahead and open your favorite command line interface. I'm using git bash. And let's go ahead and fire up our app so we've got something to look at as we make changes here. All right, so once you're in that directory, just go ahead and if you haven't installed the dependencies yet, you want to do an npm I. I've already done that, so I'm going to go ahead and do npm start, and that's going to spin up a development server and open up our UI in the browser. All right, guys, so that may take a few seconds to open, but once it does, you should see the website in your browser. Now, you will notice a few errors here. You can disregard that for now. These are just objects that I've imported in the page, but we haven't yet used them yet because we haven't coded them, so these will go away eventually. All right. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the UI here and look at what we want to do first. So let's go to the products page. Now this is a very simple page. It's just going to list out all of the products from DynamoDB, okay, that are in the system. So I think this is a good place to start to try to integrate with our REST API. All right, let's head back over to the code editor. All right, and let's expand the components folder, and we're looking for products.js. Not to be confused with product.js. So let's open products.js. All right. Now a quick explanation of what's going on here. We have component did mount, which is a React lifecycle method. And any code inside here will fire when the component's initialized. All right, so right after startup. And we're doing a this.fetch products, okay? And here is where we'll start to add our call to API gateway, all right? All right, so for all of our HTTP requests, we're going to be using something called the Axios library, which I've already imported here. So this is just a simple HTTP wrapper, which allows us to do things like axios.get, axios.post, and so forth. Similar to fetch, which is a part of JavaScript, or other libraries such as require that you may be familiar with. All right, now since we're using ES6, ES7, we want to make sure that this is an async await. So in order to use await within fetch products, we need to make this an async function. So I'm going to do async right here in the method signature. And then right below the comments here, we can start to write our code. So the first thing we need to do is create a variable to hold our HTTP response. So I'm going to do const res, okay. Now we can use the await keyword before our HTTP request. and we can do axios.get. Okay. Now we want to pass in the domain, or actually the endpoint, to our REST API here. So for that we can use config. Okay. Now if you remember back to our config.json, this holds a JSON object with properties API invoke URL, which holds pretty much the domain to our REST API. So we're importing that here. What we can do is backtick $config .api.invoke URL. Okay. Now, if you remember, for our get method, we're just doing /products, right, to pull down the whole list of products. And go ahead and don't forget your semicolon there. All right. Now on the next line. Now, if you guys have ever worked with React before, you may know that we never set state directly. We use a helper method called thisSetState. Okay. So what we want to do here is set our products in state so that then the React bindings kick in and that the products are displayed in our UI. Okay, so here's what we want to set right here. This products empty array, we need to set that to the response of our HTTP request. So we can do setState, pass in an object representing the new state, so products, and then here we can do response.data. Okay. Now that response.data is going to contain the array of products coming down from the service, all right? Okay, great. So since we're using async await, we do want to put this in a try-catch. Okay, this is just the standard syntax for async await. So let's take all this code that we just created and put it in our try clause. And then in our catch, we'll do some error handling. So this will take an error object. And I think we're just going to output this error to console for now. So we'll do a console log. Let's just say an error has occurred. And let's pass in the error object, which will contain an error message. Okay. Oops, and let me fix this here. All right, and I'll save that. Now, since I've created this starter app using Create React App, which is a scaffolding tool provided by React, it handles all of the build and everything behind the scenes. So we don't need to run a build, we don't need to minify our code or anything like that. Every time we hit save, the site will be updated. So we just need to go to the browser and check the site from here. And there we go. There are our two products from DynamoDB. So great success. We've successfully implemented our get method from API Gateway to our UI. So that is looking great. And if I go back over to AWS and just open DynamoDB, let's just verify that these values are in fact coming from our database. All right, so I'm going to click on Tables, I'm going to click on Products, Items tab, and there are our two items in the database. So just as a side note, if you, for some reason, don't have any products in your database, you can go ahead and add them. Just do create item. I like to change this to text, and then you can add your item from here like this. All right, I'm not going to actually add that since I have it already, but just in case you find that your table is empty and you have nothing showing in your UI. All right, great. Okay, so our products page is now working, fully integrated with serverless backend. All right, so the next thing we need to wire up here is our product admin page. So let's take a quick look at that page. Now, as you can see, we have a simple form here for adding products. We enter in the name and ID, and then that product should appear over to the right here. But what we also want to happen is we want the full list of products to be displayed first, okay? Similar to what we have on the products page. So let's go back into our code editor. And what I think I want to do is, since the functionality is exactly the same between these two components, let's just copy and paste this function from our products.js over to our productadmin.js. There we go. Now, the best practice here would probably be to create a wrapper component and lift up that state to that wrapper component. So we only have one fetch products method. But for the purposes of this demo, I think I'm fine doing it like this for now. Okay, it's just this is the only code that we'll have repeated throughout the entire application. So I just want to present this application in the most simple way possible so we can clearly see all the integration points. So once we have that, let's go ahead and save it, and let's just go back and see if this is working now. And there we go. Okay, so we're listing our first two products here, and we can also add a new product. So we need to wire that up with the post method from our REST API. All right, so let's go ahead and refactor our addProduct method next. Okay, so this is going to look similar to the previous one with a few changes. So let's add async to the function signature here. And then let's go right underneath the comments. And let's go ahead and create our try catch right off the bat here. Okay, so try catch, pass in an error. And we might as well go ahead and log this error right away. Then we'll deal with the try. Okay, so I'm just going to keep it simple. An error has occurred, and we'll pass in our error message. Or I should say output our error message. All right. Okay, so in the try clause, first of all, we want to create our post. So this time we don't need to do anything with the response. So we're just going to go ahead and do await, okay, axios.post. Okay, and again, we'll pass in our URL from our config variable. So it's going to be config.api.invokeURL. Okay, /products. And now for adding a product to the system, if you remember, we're passing in a product ID as the last part of the path parameter. Yeah, the last part of the path parameter. All right. All right. And now since this is a post request, we need to pass in an object representing the new product that we're adding to the system. Okay. So what we can do is right after the URL, comma, and let's call this params object. And we'll create that right underneath the try. So let's do const params. Okay, now this is going to be an object. It's going to have two properties, ID and product name. So ID is going to, we're passing ID into our addProduct function. So we're just going to set that right from our function argument. Okay, and product name is actually going to come from a state object called new product. So whenever we're filling out this form to add a new product, it's automatically, with every keystroke, saving that form value, the input value, to new product. All right, so we can grab our product name directly from state. So I'm going to say this.state.newProduct.product name. All right, so that way we're passing in our new product. And then below await. So now we want to set state. Similarly to what we did with the products.js, we want to set the state here with the new product included. So again, we'll use this set state. Okay. Products. All right, and we'll use the spread operator here to add in the current state. So we're basically saying whatever the current this.state products is, we want to include all of those, and then we want to add a new one. Okay, so we can say this.state.newProduct. And what does it not like here about my syntax? Products, let's see. Oh, of course, this should be a curly bracket. And we need to end it with a curly bracket as well. Okay, so that looks good. And then the next thing we want to do here is we want to reset the state for new product. So in other words, we want to make sure it's an empty object again. All right, so we're going to do this set state, or not exactly an empty object, but it's going to be an object with the properties initialized to empty strings. All right, so we'll say new product, pass in an object. We'll say product name. Set that to an empty string, and then we'll say ID and set that to an empty string. Just make our spacing consistent here. There we go. And I just need to add a semicolon here at the end of params. All right. Oh, and right here as well. There we go. All right, so let's see how this is working. Let's go to our browser, and let's attempt to add a new product. So I'm going to say generators, and let's do 223344. All right, add product. And there we go. That is working just great. Excellent. Okay, great. So at this point, we've got our get all products is working, and we're able to add a product to the system. So that leaves delete and update next. Let's tackle delete next. All right, so if we scroll down just a little bit here to about line 44 or so, we'll find our handledeleteproduct method. All right, so again, we'll start by making this async. Okay, just add the async keyword right there before the arguments. And let's go right underneath the comments. Okay, so let's say await axios.delete. Okay, and I'll tell you what, we can just copy our URL variable here from the function above. Okay, because this part's going to look the same. So I'm just going to copy that. Hopefully save some keystrokes here. There we go. All right, now if you notice we've got ID again in the path as a path parameter, and that's coming into the function here as an argument. So we don't need to do anything else here. All right, let's just put a try catch around this. Okay, and the catch will look the same. So again, we'll copy that from above. Hopefully save a little bit of time here. Let's just change this to say unable to delete. Okay, there we go. And let's copy our await, our Axios delete into the try. And another thing we can do, so we're updating our products and updating our state. We'll also put that right below our axios.delete, okay? And we can actually do the same for our addProduct function. So let's go, oh, we've already done that actually. It looks like we have some duplicate code, so we can delete the code from here. You guys probably caught that as I was doing it, so we definitely don't want that duplicate code, so make sure you remove that. It'll work just fine without it, but you know, we don't want unneeded code here. All right, now I think that's all we need to do here, so let's go ahead and test this out. All right, so let's switch back over to Chrome and attempt to delete a product here. So as you can see, we've got a little delete icon in the upper right-hand corner, and that's actually going to trigger the handledeleteproduct function that we just modified. So let's go ahead and give it a try. And that looks like it's working great. Excellent. All right, so we've got 3 methods implemented right now and integrated with API Gateway, which leaves one remaining, which is our patch method for updating. All right, so let's work on that one next. All right, let's go back to our code editor. And if you just scroll up a bit, you should see handleupdateproduct. All right, now this one's going to be very similar to our addproduct. All right, so let's go right underneath our comments here. Let's set up our try catch first. Okay, and let's do console.log. Let's say error updating product. And go ahead and output our error message. Okay, so underneath our try clause, we'll set up our HTTP request. So let's say await axios.patch. And then I'm just going to copy the URL and the params argument from above because it's going to be exactly the same. Okay, there we go. All right, now let's set up our params. I'll copy that as well, save a few keystrokes. So right underneath our try clause, go ahead and paste your params. And the only thing we need to change here is the product name. So this time we're not getting it from state, but we're getting it from the function argument above. So just make that say simply name. All right. And the last thing we need to do here is just let's cut and paste all of our state updating code and put it right underneath our axios.patch. Okay. All right, and I think that looks good, so let's go ahead and test this out. All right, so let's switch back over to Chrome. Now, if you see right just to the left of our delete icon here, we have an edit icon. So if you click on that, this should turn into an editable field. So let's try to change the name here. Also, I should have mentioned before, but we're not allowing anyone to change the ID because at that point it's just a new product, right? So the only other property left for them to be able to edit is the name. So I'm going to change this to solar energy panels. Oops. Just like that, all right? I go ahead and click Save. Looks good from the front end, so let's verify in the database and make sure that that's been updated. I'm going to go over back here and open up DynamoDB in a new tab. Okay, click on Tables, click on Products, Items tab, and refresh. Well, looks like it has not been updated, so there's something wrong with our HTTP request. Interesting. So if I go back to the website, if I refresh the page, then I'm guessing this is going to go back to solar panels. Yeah, so something is amiss here. Let's pop open DevTools and see what the request looks like. So I'm going to go Network, Preserve Log. Let's try that again. Solar energy panels, and save. Okay, so there's no request being fired at all. So hopefully it's an easy fix and there's just something missing between the edit, clicking the edit button, and actually firing off our request. Let's go back to the code and see. Handleupdateproduct. Okay, so let's make sure that this function is being invoked. I think I see the problem here. I didn't save the file. Well, if that's the only issue here, then I'll just be happy. So let's go back and just try it again. The keyword await outside an async function. See, these are the little things that come back and bite you that you don't notice when you're coding. But I'm always happy when it's a small issue and not a big issue. So you guys probably saw that as I was going through here. So let's make sure that this update product is async. Save it again. Now let's go back and try it one more time. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go into edit mode, change this to energy panels, click on save. Oh, there we go. It did update. There was just a bit of a lag there. All right, so let's go back to DynamoDB and check. Refresh. There we go. So it is finally updating in our backend. I just forgotten to save the file and also forgot to convert that function to async. Well, like I said, I'm just happy that it's a small issue and not a bigger issue. So, all right, so that concludes this video. So we've successfully integrated our serverless backend with our starter UI. Everything is working seamlessly at this point. Now, I'm going to end this video. I was thinking about making a part 4 and actually showing you guys how to take our localhost site and host it using S3. I actually do have another video on that, so I don't know if that would be overkill to go through that again in this tutorial. Let me know what you guys think in the comments if you have any thoughts on that. But basically that would be the last step to make this a fully integrated serverless application. But for now it's working at localhost with our serverless deployed backend. So, all right guys, well thanks for sticking with me. I know these couple of videos have been longer than my usual videos, but you know, we've created a whole entire serverless application here, so it's required some work and a little bit more coding than usual. But now, if you guys enjoyed this content, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and you know, leave comments. And I'd really like for this to become an interactive thing because I'm sharing my learning journey with you guys, but it works both ways too. You know, I know that I'm not doing everything 100% the best way. Nobody does when they're learning. You know. And as developers, we're all continually learning. So definitely I'd like to be learning from you guys as well as teaching you guys. So again, thanks, and hope to see you guys in the next video, and have a great day. All right, take care.